A new poll finds in last week's election, President Obama lost the independent voters.
A team of Democratic and Republican pollsters questioned 1,000 people across the country. The poll finds voters disapprove of the president's job performance by a margin of 52 to 44. 2 years ago, independents helped elect Barack Obama. Now, 60% of independents disapprove of the job the president is doing. Barely a third give him positive marks. The poll results were announced at a bipartisan policy summit at Tulane, co-hosted by consultant James Carville and his wife, Mary Madeline. Carville welcomed attendees to New Orleans today in a way that only James Carville can.
In every other city in America, people speak of the quality of life, and you have these things, and they sort of take the amount of park space by the number of libraries, by the opera and the symphony, and how many days it rains and the climate, you know, and then they say that it's a quality of life index. And voila, we all move to Eugene or something. Here, we never speak of a quality of life, we only speak of a way of life.
James Carville gets passionate when on the subject of protecting that way of life and Louisiana's coast. By and large, the winners in the election last week pledged to cut spending. I sat down with Carville to talk about the effort to pry more money out of a Washington that even the president says is broke. Did a window close the other day?
It's a good question. I hope not. And I'm not sure. I think we got to really tell the Louisiana story here, and this is something I have a real passion about. There's a kind of thing, if you really want to like get me going, tell me that we live in an irresponsible place. That'll drive me about as crazy. Same thing.
Carville says Louisiana is the victim of engineering failures, not nature. The Corps of Engineers has spent $14 billion just on levee and flood improvements since the storm. In a new Washington, preoccupied with trillion-dollar deficits, that well may be running dry. Washington has spent $10,000 for every man, woman, and child on flood protection.
But what most people would point out, we suffered $220 billion worth of damage, and they spent $26 billion. And we appreciate.
What I'm getting is, if I'm a congressman in Washington, if I'm from Idaho and I'm a congressman, I look at you and I say, I've spent $10,000 for every man, woman, and child, and you've just talked to me about this big deficit. I'm out of money.
Sir, no, you're not. Can I mind if I explain to you, Mr. Congressman of Idaho? You see, sir, the thing you got to remember is it was the negligence of the entity that you represent, the United States government, that in Orleans and St. Bernard, most of Orleans and St. Bernard Parish, primarily, that these people suffered. And we have a kind of thing in Louisiana that you clean up your own mess. And that's what we're asking you to do.
So my question is, can you tell that story and they'll pay attention and do something about it? Or has the window closed?
I don't think the window's closed, but I think it requires drive, I think it requires determination, I think it describes skill in telling that story.
Carville cites reforms to levee boards, the convictions of corrupt politicians, and improvements to the area's flood defenses. But he argues the job has been left undone.
So we have a heck of a story to tell here. But the story is not that we're kind of irresponsible, shifty, lazy, partying people that live in a city that is in a vulnerable place and it doesn't deserve to be protected. That's what is not the story, as much as they might like you to believe that. And we can never, ever, ever let that story get out there. Whenever it tries to get out, it has to be tamped down, it has to be hit with a sledgehammer. We're very proud of what we've done here.
Everybody knows you're a pretty passionate guy anyway. Maybe I didn't get you revved up enough on the national stuff, but your passion came out on LSU and on New Orleans.
Right. I have become very passionate about this place. I grew up here. When I came back, I realized how much I loved it. This is about people I know, and these about people I went to school with. It's sort of coastal issue. I went to high school in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, and a lot of people don't realize this. We played games against kids from Golden Meadow, La Rose, Lockport, Chauvin, Homer, Thibodaux. These places may not exist. It's literally just looking this whole coastal thing. I mean, everybody regrets getting old. I regret that I'm getting old when there's so much left to do.